Your sister? She's not getting a single thing. Dad's voice was calm and certain. I was supposed to be asleep, but the air vent carried every word from the living room. I heard the ice clink in his glass and Mom's tired laugh, the one she only used while gossiping over wine. She's always kept her distance, Mom said. Elise never really belonged in this family. She can take care of herself. Then Dad said the words that shattered something inside me. We'll finalize everything this week. The trust goes to Ivy. Elise doesn't need to know until it's finished. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't cry. I just lay there in the small guest room staring at the fake Monet hanging above the bed. It looked beautiful from a distance, but up close it meant nothing, just like the family I had spent my whole life trying to belong to. My name is Elise Monroe. I'm 32, single, no children, and apparently invisible to my own family. The next morning I smiled over breakfast, poured coffee, hugged my younger sister Ivy goodbye, and acted like I hadn't heard a thing. But the moment I returned to my condo in Washington, D.C., I opened my laptop. I logged into every shared account they had forgotten I could still access. Then I quietly reclaimed what was mine. I didn't steal anything. I simply recovered the money I had earned. Dad had kept my share of the proceeds from a jointly owned property after it was sold. I transferred my half. Mom and I had opened a savings account together years earlier. Every deposit with my initials came back to me. Then there was Grandpa's trust. That part required more than a transfer. Before Grandpa passed away, he handed me a signed copy of the original trust. Keep this, he told me. Just in case. I scanned the document, uploaded it to the trust portal, and reported the recent changes as fraudulent. By the next morning, the trust administrator had frozen every transaction until an investigation was completed. The panic started immediately. Ivy texted me. Did you do something to the accounts? Mom and Dad are freaking out. Asterisk asterisk. I answered with one sentence. Just organizing what's already mine. Smiling face with smiling is asterisk asterisk. She never replied. Dad called several times, but I let every call go to voicemail. I wasn't angry anymore. I was finished. And that's far more dangerous than anger. His second voicemail sounded nothing like the first. Elise. Sweetheart. This has to be a misunderstanding. Please call us. We're only trying to do what's best for the family. That excuse might have worked years ago. Not anymore. Instead of calling, I emailed him a copy of Grandpa's original trust, complete with signatures. I copied the estate attorney and ended my message with one simple sentence. Please refrain from misrepresenting my legal rights again. Then I blocked their numbers. Not out of spite. Out of peace. A week later, Ivy appeared outside my office carrying a coffee I never accepted. Her eyes were red from crying. You really think this is what Grandpa wanted? She asked. I met her gaze. No. I think Mom and Dad forced this to happen. Deep down you know that. She couldn't answer. She had always believed what they told her. I was the child who asked questions. She was the child who trusted the answers. Our parents praised her for being sweet and agreeable. They criticized me for noticing things that didn't make sense. They raised me to be strong. They just never expected that strength would one day stand against them. That Friday Mom sent flowers. Peonies. Ironically, they were my least favorite. She never remembered. The card read, Family is messy but love wins. Let's talk. Asterisk asterisk. I dropped the bouquet straight into the office trash. Because this wasn't one mistake. It was years of them choosing everyone else over me. Leaving me out of family vacations while expecting me to pay part of the cost. Borrowing my first tax refund and never paying it back. Giving Ivy comfort while telling me to simply work harder. For years I fought for their approval. Now I didn't need it. I finally had something better. The truth. So I completed the final paperwork requesting separate distribution of every remaining shared asset. The administrator approved it within days. No courtroom. No shouting. Just signatures, legal documents, and one chapter quietly closing forever. That evening I cooked dinner, played Grandpa's favorite jazz records, and raised a glass toward his photo. You always saw me, I whispered, even when they didn't. For the first time in years I felt completely at peace. Then came the final twist. The family lawyer discovered that Mom had forged Grandpa's signature on an amendment removing me from the trust after his death. A handwriting expert confirmed it. The document was declared invalid. The law firm immediately withdrew from representing my parents. Days later, Ivy called again. This time she wasn't angry. She sounded heartbroken. "They lied to me too," she whispered. "They told me you gave up your inheritance. They said you were ashamed of us." I stayed silent. "I believed them," she continued. "All these years. I believed them." Her voice broke. "I'm sorry." After a long pause, I finally answered. "I know you wanted to believe the best in them. That's not your fault," I said quietly. "Just don't repeat it." I heard Ivy nod through the silence on the other end of the call. We ended the conversation without promises, without forced forgiveness, and without pretending everything was fixed. Even so, it was the most honest conversation we'd ever had. That night, I walked past the framed childhood photo hanging in my hallway, the only picture my parents had ever displayed of me. For years I'd stared at it, wondering if I had ever truly belonged. Now I finally knew the answer. And it didn't hurt anymore. The real family drama exploded at Thanksgiving. I wasn't there. I had no reason to be. Later that evening, Ivy sent me a text. "Mom cried through dinner. Dad barely said a word. They told Aunt Ray you stole everything, asterisk asterisk." I never responded. Because I hadn't stolen anything. I had simply stopped pretending. My parents had built their lives around one assumption, that I'd always stay quiet, keep helping, pay my share, and never question anything. The moment I stepped away, the illusion collapsed. A few days later, their real estate agent called me. He sounded confused. "Your name is still listed on the property deed," she said. "They told me it had already been transferred." "It hasn't," I replied. I had never removed my name. Maybe part of me had held on to it out of nostalgia. Or maybe I'd learned that silence means very little unless the paperwork supports it. Instead of keeping my share, I transferred my interest in the property to the Affordable Housing Foundation Grandpa had supported for years. Then I mailed the legal documents. According to Ivy, Mom cried for 2 straight days. I didn't celebrate. But I didn't feel guilty either. When someone tells you that you don't belong in their home, believe them. Then build one where your place can never be questioned. 3 months later, I saw my parents for the first time. It happened at a city art gallery. Grandpa's photography collection had finally been restored and placed on public display. He loved photographing ordinary people in forgotten neighborhoods, finding beauty where most people never looked. I'd quietly helped secure the grant that made the exhibition possible. No one knew. I hadn't invited my parents. Till they came. Mom stood near the back of the gallery, dressed far too formally for the event. Dad remained beside her, hands buried in his pockets. Neither of them approached me. Not until Grandpa's photographs began filling the walls. Then they slowly moved closer. One image appeared. It was me at 10 years old, asleep on the porch with a book resting on my chest. Dad inhaled sharply. "He loved you the most," he whispered. "We just didn't know what to do with that." I never turned around. "You didn't have to do anything," I answered. "You just had to stop pretending I wasn't there." Mom opened her mouth to speak. Before she could, the final photograph appeared. It wasn't a photograph at all. It was an empty frame with one handwritten note beneath it. "Some things aren't truly seen until they're gone." Only then did I turn around. For the first time in my life, I didn't see my parents as heroes. I didn't even see them as villains. I simply saw 2 flawed people living with the consequences of their choices. There were no dramatic apologies. No emotional reunion. They quietly put on their coats and walked away beneath the soft gallery lights. And for the first time, I didn't follow. Because revenge had never been the goal. Freedom was. Using the inheritance Grandpa had protected, I created an arts scholarship in his name for young artists who rarely received opportunities. I never attached my own name to it. I didn't need the recognition. When the city announced the scholarship, Ivy forwarded me the article with a single message. "Now that's a real legacy." I smiled. We still weren't close. But something between us had begun to heal. We were like 2 people who had survived the same storm. Neither of us needed to explain the rain anymore. Several months later, a package arrived at my door. There was no return address. Inside was Grandpa's camera. His treasured Leica, the one he had never trusted anyone else to touch. Taped beneath it was a folded note in his handwriting. "For Elise, the only one who truly saw." I stood there for a long time holding both the camera and the letter. Then I stepped onto my balcony and breathed in the crisp winter air. My parents built a house that never had room for me. So I built something far better. A life filled with peace. A future no one could erase. And this time, my name was written on every part of it.